We have a kit here from Spears Racing to modify the transmission of the 2023 and 2024 ZX4RR. This is supposed to help prevent false neutrals and give more affirmative shifts. Inside the kit, we've got some spacers, shims, and a detent spring. So we're going to use these to hopefully fix the false neutrals that everybody's been having on this bike. As you can see here, it comes with a new washer, comes with a new shim that we're going to put inside on the shift arm, and it also comes with a new circlip in here, so you don't have to reuse any of the old parts once you take this all off. It's a pretty nice kit, and I've talked to a lot of guys that have had great success. So you can see the instructions here. We're going to be working mostly with this external shift mechanism. In order to get started, you're going to have to remove your shift arm and circlip from the other side, as well as your fairings. I've already done that before I started this video. So let's go ahead and get into tearing apart the clutch. First thing you're going to have to do to get in there and get at the clutch is you're going to have to take off the clutch cover. So start by removing the clutch shift linkage at the top here. I find using a big adjustable wrench put on top of the shift arm works really well. You can snug it up on there, pull your lever, and just flick your cable outside of it. Make sure you use a big adjustable. It just gives you more leverage and makes it easier to do this job. You also got to unhook the wire from the grommet down there. And now we're going to get a 12mm wrench, and we're going to loosen off just one side of this cable adjuster. You don't want to do both of them because you don't want to lose where your shift cable is and have to readjust everything when you reinstall it. So just spin off the nut on the left. Once you've got that all the way off, you're going to pull the rubber gasket at the end back, and you'll be able to slide this cable out through the top of the housing. There's a little groove there that it slides through, and just try and tuck it out of the way if it'll stay for you. Okay, so now that we've got the cable off, we're going to get an 8mm. I use an impact, just get this done quickly, and let's take all these bolts off. All the bolts are the same size, so you don't have to worry about remembering where they came from on this bike. Alright, all the bolts are off. We'll just set those aside in a container somewhere. Again, these are all the same size. Don't worry about misplacing them. It's not going to be a problem. Put an oil pan underneath because you might have a little bit of dribbles. So we'll go ahead and we'll just wiggle this off gently. You'll have to wiggle the shift arm at the top and your cover will come right off. Set that someplace safe. You probably don't want to get it all scratched up. A good thing to note is because you took the clutch cover off, you're going to need a new gasket. I got one in my kit from Spears Racing. It is an extra cost for it. You can get it from the dealer if you want. As long as you have a new gasket, just to make sure you don't have any leaks on your bike once this is all done. So what we're after inside here is right here. We have to pull everything off the clutch side to get down to that shift rod deep inside the casing. So let's go ahead and get at it. We'll start with the clutch basket. We'll remove those 3 clutch spring bolts. Those are 10mm. Just make sure to switch from your 8 to your 10 here. Again, you can use some power tools to take it all off. Just don't use power tools to reassemble it to do your final torque. You don't want to damage anything or cross thread anything inside your engine. So go back and forth on these because they're spring loaded. You want to take them off relatively equal. As you're pulling stuff off of the clutch or anywhere on your bike, make sure that you put them down someplace safe in the same way they came off. So we'll go ahead and take the front cover off of the clutch basket here. These first plates will come off with it because they're smaller than the rest. So I'm just going to make a little spot inside my oil pan here for them. It's really important to note as you take these friction plates out, as well as the drive plates, to keep them in the right orientation. There is an up and a down to them. So you want to make sure that you're putting them back the same way you took them off. I've already been into this clutch before. While I was in there, I did a Works upgrade for the springs as well as Works friction plates. I find that it gives it a lot better clutch engagement, so highly recommend that as well while you're in here. The last thing to get off is the little spring clip in the back. Again, make sure it's put down the right way. There is a right and a wrong way. Pull the little clutch pin. This is your clutch actuator. Pull that, put it aside as well. Again, everything's in the basket the same way I took it off, so when I put it back together, it's easy. Our next step is we're going to have to pull this large bolt that holds the actual clutch basket on. It's a 27 millimeter. There's a clutch tool to hold your basket, but I just do it like this. Works fine. Just get on that with the impact really good and spin that off. If you don't have an impact, you can use a breaker bar, but you will need the clutch basket tool if you're doing that. So you've got a big nut in there. Again, set it down, make sure it's the right way, pull the spacer off. The spacer has a right way as well. So pull that off, and then your basket is going to just wiggle right out here in the middle. You can see it's splined, so be careful with it. Make sure you keep the washer on the back. Again, the same orientation. There is a top and a bottom to these things as you're pulling it apart. Okay, so to get the actual clutch basket itself off, if you wiggle it a little bit, what's going to happen is there's an inner sleeve that's going to jiggle up a little bit, and once you wiggle the basket up and down, you'll be able to pull that sleeve out. Again, put it down right side up. With the sleeve out of the way, your clutch basket's going to slide to the left, and now you can get it around that gear that had it stuck on it. Once you pull it out, be careful on the back. You can see there is another gear on the back. You don't want to lose that. That's for your oil pump. So now we're going to take out this oil pump drive gear here. It's a 10 millimeter. I just use a screwdriver to kind of hold it on the case, just easier on the fingers. So pull that out, and we can take this this oil pump drive gear off. There's nothing else holding it, so again, just pay attention to the way that it came out. What side's up, what side's down. The gears do matter. You want to put them back in the right way. So now we can go ahead and pull out the shift rod linkage. This is what we were after here. If it gets stuck, just give it a little push from the other side. It'll pop right out. There are some bushings in there and some seals. So here's your shift rod linkage. And what we're looking at changing on this is this washer. It's rather a large washer here. So if you check, you can see that this is a 0.04 millimeter washer, which is pretty thick from factory, and that's causing your shift rod to sit a little bit further to the right side of the bike because it's pushing everything out, so that it doesn't quite engage as well. If you look at this new one that they've sent in the kit from Spears, and we put that back and measure it in inches as well, you're going to see that this is 0.008, so it's way smaller, and it's going to give you a more definitive engagement on your clutch. Showed that in millimeters here as well for those of you who prefer that. So take this new shim, slide it onto your shift rod. It's a little snug, so just be careful, you don't want to bend it. Put it down on your shift rod all the way, and that's good. The next part of this install is going to be this detent spring. I did lose part of the video, so just showing you it here. In order to get at the detent spring, you're going to have to remove this star gear. It is a 5 millimeter Allen, so we'll spin that out of the way. Be careful when you remove this. Again, a lot of these bolts have Loctite on them. Pay attention to which one to do for reinstallation. So you can pull the star gear out of the way, and the detent spring goes on this control arm here. You'll have to take the control arm off. I do apologize, I lost some video footage here, so make sure you've got your spring on here. Make sure you got your new spring locked in properly, like I'm doing now. Snug it up. You don't have to go super tight. We're going to torque all this afterwards. Make sure you have an inch-pound torque wrench when you are torquing all of this. The proper setting on this is going to be 89 inch-pounds. Make sure that it is. I've seen guys make the mistake before of accidentally using a foot-pound torque wrench, and they start breaking things. So 89 inch-pounds, or just good and hand tight if you're comfortable with that. So you can see here I've got my torque wrench, and I'm going to get a long socket adapter and get on that, and I will make sure to torque that up. Notice it's a rather small torque wrench. That's how you know for sure it's inch-pounds. So now that this arm is installed there, you can feel there's a lot of pressure on it from that new detent spring. So we're going to have to take and install the star gear. You have to line that pin up with the slot inside of the gear. So it's going to take a fair bit of pressure pulling up on that arm and getting the star gear in place where it was before. Because this was all Loctite before when I took it apart, I'm going to take and put some more Loctite on it. I'm kind of running low here, so that's why I had to take the cap off. So we've got some Loctite now on this bolt. And we're going to take and try and pry up on the detent arm and get that star gear locked in on the pin. This can be a really hard procedure and pretty annoying to do because there's a lot of pressure on that control arm from the new spring, but just take your time and pull up and get in there as best you can. Eventually you're gonna get this locked in. You'll feel it once it's in place, and just make sure it's seated really well. You don't want to have any problems here. So we've got that in, and then we'll go ahead and put the bolt in. Again, this bolt goes in the same as the last one, so I'm just gonna spin it in, and then I will take and torque this. This bolt's a little bit less, so just reset your torque wrench. This is going to go down to 69 foot-pounds, I think it is. I'll make sure to put all the torque settings in the video description below for those who are looking for it. So go ahead and torque that on as well. Get that nice and snug. Alright, so now we have our new detent spring in, and that's what's supposed to help stop your false neutrals. So now comes reassembly. So we're going to start with the shift linkage here. Make sure that when you orientate it that the pin goes through the two spring catches on this side and push it in really hard. You might need a little mallet or something to give it a whack. It does have to go really deep in there in order to come out far enough on the other side. So now we're going to take our oil pump drive gear. Again, we'll put that back on. Remember that bolt also came off with some Loctite on it. So let's put some more Loctite on it. Last thing you want is anything flying off inside your engine. I couldn't find a torque setting for this, so I'm just going to take and put this on tight. However, I did find that if you just put this on hand tight now and wait until you get the clutch basket on, it's a lot easier to do. So I'm just taking my impact and giving it a snug up there. I'm not going too hard. So the next step is to put on the clutch basket. Again, make sure your gear on the back, which is your oil pump drive, is on right. When you put this basket in, you're going to have to line up the oil pump drive on the bottom, as well as on the right hand side there's another gear that you're going to have to line up. Now these do take a moment of wiggling to get in. Once you get these in right, you're going to find that this bushing slides into place really easily. If you're fighting that bushing, that means that one of your gears is probably not lined up, so take it off and try again. So going backwards the way we came, we have our washer or spacer is going to go inside here, and then we're going to have the back of our clutch baskets going on here. We're going to put the other washer on. 27mm nut goes on here. Again, I'm just kind of hand tightening this right now. Get everything snugged up by hand so that we don't cross thread is really important. Remember, this was a 27mm, so because I don't have the tool to lock this in, what I'm using is a torque to yield bar. This is a 100 foot-pound bar. The torque spec on that is 97 foot-pounds, so that's going to be fine. So put that on my impact and use something again to wedge it and go full throttle on this. The bar is going to prevent you from putting more torque than 100 on here, so get it on there good. Make sure that everything is as snug as it can. I know it looks all vibrating and it's definitely moving in the picture, but it's on there tight. I've done this a couple times and it works out just fine for me. Of course, if you want to get a clutch basket tool, those do exist. So start with the cupped washer. It comes with the cup side out. Make sure you start stacking your friction plates the same way you took them off. Generally, you need to do one friction and one drive at a time. You're not going to be able to put them on as a stack. At least I can't. It's a little tricky. So just take your time here, line all the teeth up, put all your plates on. If you are upgrading at this time to the new clutch or new clutch plates, please make sure you soak those in oil before you install them. If I'm doing new clutch plates, I'll throw them in oil as soon as they're off the bike, the new ones, just to make sure that everything's going to be good. If you put these in dry, you will have problems and burn your clutch out. So we get all these plates in, and the last two plates are going to be on the top of the housing, so make sure you've got them tucked in. Before you put the housing on, make sure that you put the clutch pin in and that the bearing is in the middle of the housing. And these three tabs, the way it works on Kawasaki is they lock into these three grooves, so you put it on, and once it's on, you give it just about a little turn here like I'm doing to lock those tabs in, and a jiggle, and everything will slide into the housing hopefully for you. Now that you've got that, springs go on next. These springs that I'm using aren't tapered, so I can go either direction with them, it doesn't matter. Start with your spring tension bolts, put them on by hand. You don't want to strip these. These are really long bolts, so I tend to put them on with an impact. I'm barely pushing the trigger here on my impact, and I'm going to rotate it around several times so it goes on level. As soon as it gets tight, I'm going to stop because I don't want to torque these with the impact. I just want to save time putting them on. So now those are snug, I'll get my torque wrench. Again, it's really convenient that most of the settings on this bike seem to be similar. I believe these were also 69 foot-pounds. So I'll go ahead and torque those up. I like to go around twice just to make sure that I've got everything when I'm dealing with these type of springs. So we'll go ahead and do that and make sure everything's torqued properly. All right, now we're good to put the cover back on. So you will notice that I've got my new gasket here. I'd already cleaned this in some of the footage that I lost, so I used this plastic razor blade to scrape around here to get all the old goo off, and then I like to take a little bit of red Scotch-Brite and just give it a little scuff. Just be gentle. This is an aluminum housing. You don't want to put any divots or pits in it. It doesn't have to be perfectly shiny. You just want to get the vast majority of it off. So I'll put this gasket on. I'll put it on the two dowels that are on the engine side. That's going to hold it in place fine. And then we rotate the shift linkage so that it's fully open on the back so that it can grab that pin. Line it up. Wiggle your dowels on. They're only going to go on a little bit. They'll feel like they're stuck, and at that point you can rotate and jiggle your shift arm here, and it will grab, and you'll know it's in right when it goes almost halfway. It's going to point straight at the bike, so you know you've grabbed your shift rod good. So at this point in time, we're almost done now. All we need to do is take and reassemble the housing. So we're going to get our 8mm on our impact. Again, we're not torquing them. We're just going to, with the 8mm, we're just going to get this done a little quicker. So we'll put all the bolts in, and we'll torque them down as well. They're the same as the springs, so those are, I believe, 69 foot-pounds. I could be wrong on the values. Please check the description to make sure. Now we've got our shift cable back in. Again, remember, we're going to tighten just the one side to make sure that that's locked in properly. And now we take our large adjustable wrench on our upper shift rod here, and we're going to pull that in. Oh, just be careful here. It's a little tricky to get sometimes. You don't want to damage anything. We'll pull that shift rod all the way in and hook the cable up. The last thing to do once you've got this cable hooked up is to go around to the other side of the bike with the large washer and circlip that was in the Spears kit and reinstall those. Just make sure when you do them that your circlip is in all the way and clicks. and locks. I didn't get any video of that. It's not a very easy place to record. Now that you got that clutch cable in, the last thing we need to do is we need to get the washer or spacer and the circlip and put it on the other side of the bike. So here's the parts that came in the Spears kit. You don't need to reuse any of the OEM stuff. So we'll just try and get around to the other side here. Apologize for the filming quality. I'm doing this by myself, so a little hard to hold the camera and get in there. So what we're going to do is get down here between these two bikes, and you can see on the Ninja, here's your shift rod. And what we want to do is we want to take the new spacer and put it on this rod. And then we want to take the circlip using some circlip pliers, and we're going to slide that down the rod and push it all the way down until it clicks. If it doesn't go in all the way, you might have to pull the rod a little bit, but it should lock in place.